Hey,
Hey, witches!
witches!
Okay. Second episode of our spooky season for October is going to be my choice of urban legends. So mine's not true crime like Brandy's was, and mine is historical. So I wouldn't say urban legend, but historical legend. It's about witches. So,
Ooh,
in honor of Hocus Pocus and Court of Witches, I'm going to do a witch episode.
I like it.
So, everyone knows about the Salem Witch Trials and how in the 1600s there was a huge increase of like deaths and women and one man because of being accused of witchcraft. Well, South Carolina had their own witchcraft trials.
Ooh.
Very, very small um in comparison, and it was like 100 years after. So or give or take 100 years after. So this woman by the name of Faye Colum Fairley claims that her third great grandfather was um responsible for bringing one of the accused into this world. So her third great grandfather, named Vincent E. Cullum, married a lady named Sarah Jeter. Her mother's maiden name was Free, and Sarah's second great grandfather, Lawrence Free, married a lady named Mary Criggan. She became this woman's seventh great grandmother and the sensational subject for this tale.
Ooh.
So, in the year 1714, brought, very famous composers, some writers, historians, all of that. But, however, during this time as well, this woman's seventh great grandmother was apparently a temptress with piercing dark eyes and long red hair. She was a true seductress to the male gender. Now, take this with a grain of salt because this is somebody's great grandmother, not necessarily true fact. I'm not writing the story, this bitch is. So, anyways, so her choice for a mate, however, was Lawrence Free, the handsome young German who came here to America for a better life. Um, so basically, they're in South Carolina. This is kind of the northern part of the state. It's in Winsboro or Fairfield County, I believe. So it's not anywhere near the coast. So it's kind of wildernessy right now. Um, so this new couple faced a lot of difficult things, like the untouched wilderness. That was always beckoning some hardships with them. There were very many beasts in the area looking for food, which was very, very difficult to hide from. There were Indians, which she writes savage Indians. I did not approve of that. There were Indians wanting to lay claim to the land, as they should have, because that was probably their land before. Um, anyways, but the Indians would attack anybody that they saw as a threat. So, like, that was some issues with this young couple as well. So they're trying to create a home in this time and place. Um, so fighting off insects, rodents, snakes, plants, and all of that, and other human people. There were also many diseases and illnesses during this time. So the 1700s had a lot of limited medicines. However, Mary had been taught to recognize herbs, roots, plants, and how to apply each to a given ailment for whatever reason.
Witchcraft.
Yeah. So she had very many useful cures for various ailments and injuries. If she did not have this experience, she probably would have died, um, as her husband as well. So she had a lot of success with doing all of these herbs and all that, and she kind of became known for it amongst the townspeople. And they were often calling her for help for any ailments that they had come in contact with, and some were actually wanting to learn about anything and everything that she could teach for whatever they got. So apparently there was evidence that they only had 3 children. The first was born in 1733. Um, and there some places are mentioning that there were more children, but there's no actual documentation for it. The documents that are available mention 3 boys. Um, so they had a very modest lifestyle, and against all the odds, they did pretty well for themselves. Um, no one really used the money during that time, so it was really barter for all the goods needed. So they did a lot of fur trading and all that kind of stuff. Um, they had like a garden, blah blah blah, like the typical settlement kind of thing that they were having. However, um, so Lawrence Free, Mary's husband, died in 1771. So at the time, Mary um, Free was 57 years old. And, all her sons had grown up and left the house, so it's just her. So she wanted to remarry for companionship. She was lonely, and she found Jacob Engelman. So her name is now Mary Engelman. And Jacob also lived in South Carolina. So they worked together, and for several years, everything was, civil and peaceful in Fairfield County. So in comes a historical event with, the magnitude of the century right here. So in 1789 and 1790, things started, happening across the Fairfield countryside. Cattles were falling sick and, dying.
Ooh.
Horses and mules weren't acting normal, they were acting kind of crazy. And also, smaller animals were acting very odd. Some people started acting very strange and claimed to be possessed by some kind of demon. No one ever mentioned what kind of demon, but some kind of demon. This behavior brought on many fights and a lot of injuries. So, more loss of cattle and people brought on the collected thoughts that the townspeople of something has to be done. Um, and reading this really made me think, like, could Mary Engelman have done that? Like, what if she was a witch, and what if she did spell work to kind of increase her business? And it's not really even a business, but to like, because she wasn't getting paid anything, it was a barter system. So, what if she was trying to do all of these things to increase her, essentially, her net worth? Like, you owe me all of this. I cured your entire cattle, or I did this for you, kind of stuff.
Mm.
Makes you wonder, which is probably why she was, you know, the subject of this. Um, so, anyways, with most tragedies, this is someone's fault. So no one knew really anything about plagues or diseases just because of that time period. Medicine was not very, advanced. So they had to find someone to blame, and what better way than to blame a woman for doing witchcraft? So, in search
Yep.
of something they could
Sounds right.
explain, they remembered the witch hunts of Salem, and they all agreed that there must be witches among them and to
My
cause
God.
such catastrophic occurrences. Yeah.
How do you look back on something, which I guess at that time they probably didn't think the witch trials of Salem were crazy, but like,
Right. Because
how do you
yeah,
look back like and not learn from history and just do it
right.
again? Like, what?
Because you have to have a few years in between, but apparently this happened 100 years after the Salem witch trials. I
Right.
mean, that was in the 1600s. This is now like late 1700s, almost 1800s. Um, but anyways, so Mary Engelman is now 77 years old, and she
Oh,
was the first to be
Jesus.
accused. Yeah. So she was accused because of her abilities to cure various ailments. There were 3 more other people in the area who are also worked with herbs, roots, and other forms of healing. And so all 4 of these people were taken to a farm of a man named Thomas Hill. Now, Thomas Hill was very influential of the people in the area. So like he's basically, I wouldn't say he's mayor, but he's like top-notch man there. And he's probably very rich because of the farm he has. Um
Yeah.
so by the time the trial starts and is continuing, Mary is 78 years old. So a year has passed since the very beginning of this accusation. So the volunteer townspeople held the trial for the four witches, quote unquote, and the testimonies were just absolutely insane. So Thomas Hill, the owner of the farm of where they're at and hosting the trial, took over the role of judge, jury, and executioner.
Hmm. As one does.
Yes. So one farmer from the area testified that he saw Mary turn into a deer, and then she turned into a black panther, and then back to herself again. One farmer stated under oath that he saw Mary use magic to pick up a cow and slam it down on the ground, breaking its neck. Another witness testified that Mary had turned a young man into a horse and rode him into the witches' convention.
What?
uh, yeah, and that same witness stated that the devil was in attendance as well. Some more witnesses came forward and said that Mary had used magic to levitate them and hold them off the ground so they couldn't run away. They claimed that the force was just so strong that four men could not bring them back from the air. Um, and among the people who are accusing these people, these witnesses also included her son and grandson. So, grandbaby and little baby son is there saying, yeah, that bitch is a witch.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
What kind of good
So,
drugs did she give them?
okay,
Shouldn't have
I
gave
don't
them the
know.
good shit. Like fuck.
So, her son Adam swore that his mother had tried to get a cow from him. And when Adam refused, she put a spell on the cow to where only blood would come out of the udders,
Oh,
nothing else.
shut up.
Uh, the grandson of Mary. Now, it doesn't say that this grandson is Adam's child. I can only assume because there were no other sons there,
Right.
and I can only assume these two are linked. Also, just because of like how my family members run, like usually the batshit crazy people are like on one side of the family, and they're all like
Yeah.
father son kind of stuff. Um, but anyways, so the grandson of Mary stated that she had turned him into a horse and rode him all the way to the apple orchard. And
I
at
don't
the
think that
orchard,
anyone should ever say that their grandmother rode them.
it's
I'm gonna vote that that didn't happen.
because we're using logic here. However, there's one man being the judge, jury, and executioner,
Oh
so
my
there is no
god.
sense here. Anyways, um, and so to really just dive it in deep, the grandson said that while at the orchard, she had hit him on the head when he had tried to get an apple. He was hungry. He wanted an apple, and Grandma said, "Not today, Satan," and baps him on the face. So,
As one does.
yeah, it's like, excuse me, are you bartering for these goods? Did you sell your ailments for this? No, I did not.
Oh my
Um,
god.
anyways, so the four accused obviously could not offer any defense to help them other than I didn't do it. Um, and this was not sufficient for this quote unquote court of farmers. That's partially why I did this because I thought that was
Oh
funny.
my god.
So the four witches, as they were, accused of being, were found guilty and hanged in the ceiling joints, where they hung until they were flogged severely. Near
Ugh.
death, yeah, near death, they were removed, gagged, and bound, and their feet were placed in a fire until the soles of their feet popped off. And here's the thing. Some some accounts, now this one doesn't say it specifically, but some accounts say that Mary actually survived. I mean, the story doesn't end there. It continues, but some stories say that Mary actually didn't die during the hanging, that the reason why they had to continue on with like more torture was because they weren't dying while being hung.
Well, if you
I mean,
don't do
because
it
you
right.
right. So either like I mean, we're in the fucking boonies here. Like maybe the workmanship was just not as great as it once was, and the rope just broke or something like that. But usually when you're getting hanged, like your neck breaks. Like
Right.
the
Well, if you do it
and
right.
you're right. So whatever the case may be, they didn't die by hanging. They were also flogged, and their feet were essentially burnt off, like the bottoms of their
Oh,
feet. So when she was
just like.
released, yeah, so when Mary was released, and here's the thing, this bitch is 78 years old. She
Right. Like,
survived a hanging, being flogged, and now she can barely fucking walk. So there's that.
ugh.
Anyways, so um
And like, as
as
someone's son and grandson, how do you watch this? Because they were there. Like,
oh,
these are like
fuck yeah.
spectacles, and everybody comes and like has a party while this is happening. So, like, how, as the son and
And
grandson, do you watch your grandmother hang and not die, and then be beat and then burned, knowing that you
right?
helped put her there? Like,
Right? Like obviously no one gave a shit about their gender and the fact that that was their mother, but anyways. So after she was released, Mary was attacked before she got off the hill farm. So as she was leaving the hill farm, she was attacked. A man had knocked her down and placed a heavy log across her neck. She was obviously very weak and injured from the torture, so she remained there until the next day when she was rescued. Um, these people were likely not injured or crippled for life, but they were released after the torture.
what the fuck?
Yeah. Mary was the only one of the four to seek justice. She approached the judge with charges against John Crossland. He was the one who had beaten and tortured the four of them. And the judge was sympathetic to her cause and had Mr. Crossland arrested and charged with battery. Um, so John Crossland was found guilty and he was fined £5. And incidentally, he never paid the fine.
Of course he fucking didn't. Plus,
Um,
fines only make things illegal for the rich. Like, a
right.
fine is just a way of saying that if you pay this money, then you can break the law. Like,
And you could do it again. Like, it's fine,
right.
whatever.
You
And
just
half
have
the
to
time,
be
nobody ever does it. Yeah.
right.
Um, anyways, it was told that Mary was attacked numerous times and beaten severely. And it was even stated that once she escaped an attempted hanging. Um, but this woman was unable to. She was unable to locate the place and time of Mary's death. But it's said that Mary had lived to be very old because 78, 79 in the late 1700s was not old. That's old now. That's in 2022, that's considered old.
Yeah.
And this girl is probably, this bitch is like ancient in that time. Like
Right?
people
Like,
barely even survived past 50. So
right.
that's also probably why they thought she was a
A
in
witch.
yeah. So anyways, Um, so if you just type in Mary Engelman, Ingelman, the first witch of Winnsboro, South Carolina, you will find some more information about her. Very little information, but some. Um, and it is believed that she still sits on the courthouse steps of the Fairfield County Courthouse, still awaiting justice to those who wronged her more than 200 years ago.
Huh.
And fun fact, actually, about that courthouse. Um, so in the archives of the History Museum of Winnsboro are some photos of Mary Engelman's house taken before it was torn down in the early 1970s. So it was still standing up until the 1970s.
Wow.
Yeah. On the side of the chimney was a rune, which was commonly found on many traditional buildings in Northern Europe. One of the reasons runes are placed on houses is for protection. The rune on Mary Engelman's chimney was a diamond-shaped rune, which is the Germanic traditional version of the rune Ingwas, Ingwac. This is the rune of fertility, good fortune, and creative power. Ingus is the name of a fertility god and god of fire and is the guardian of the hearth fire. Also, the word Inglenook is, which is Scottish in origin, means chimney corner. There's also a similarity between Mary's last name and the rune's name. So apparently, on the grounds where Mary's house was, lights and sounds can still be heard and
Ooh.
seen. And some people believe that there's some residual energy left um, after Mary's passing. Um, but yeah, so there's some photos online too that you can find of Mary Engelman supposedly waiting at the courthouse steps for her due.
Huh.
So yeah,
I was gonna
so
say they did
there's
not have photography back then, but that like
yeah,
of her ghost or whatever.
yeah,
Okay, got you.
yeah, like there's a supposedly an apparition in this picture. Anyways, the second short version of this is also based out of South Carolina. And what do you think the most common uh idea of like costume on Halloween is besides a witch?
A ghost,
Well, yeah, okay.
a clown,
I'm thinking like yo ho.
oh, a pirate.
Yeah. I feel like it's either a ghost, witch, or pirate. Like those are the common
Yeah.
ones. Um well, South Carolina, Charleston area, and many other places are known to have pirate activity. There's plenty of places where pirates were hanged. Um, there supposedly like houses that are haunted with pirate spirits, and there's actually one house that's called the Pirate House.
Ooh.
Um, yeah, so there's like a section in downtown Charleston called the French Quarter, and it's on Church Street. So there is a house known as the Pirate House because this house was essentially a boarding house. It was a gambling den. It was a place for local merchants to trade in contraband goods um, with other pirates and all that during the colonial era. So during this time, South Carolina was under the English navigation law, which meant that there were extremely high taxes placed on goods that had to be shipped to the colonies. So these tariffs made purchasing not only luxury items, but day to day items very expensive. Um, so because of this, smuggling was huge. So, according to the story, the pirate house was one of the spots where trade went on. So, there's supposedly a very secret tunnel underneath the house that leads to like the sewer system. Um, that kind of leads to other places uh, where other areas of smuggling occurred. Um, one of them is apparently Dock Street Theater, which actually is was an option I was thinking about doing because that's also a haunted location here.
Huh.
Um, and Dock Street Station is only a couple of blocks away from this house, so there is
Legit.
possibility of seeing this tunnel. Maybe not in like person, but like on like a map or something like that. Like you might be able to see like a random tunnel leading to this house to this house. Um anyways, you can see this house from the street, like you can drive past it, all of that, and there's a huge like anchor. on the side of the house. Um, so yeah, that's kind of cool. Anyways, it's just it's really really cool. It's got like a courtyard with like a restored fountain and all of that because it was a house known for entertaining pirates. So anybody who wanted to drink, gamble, play around with the local prostitutes, all that stuff. Um, and some accounts say that a very famous pirate of that time frequented the place. He was uh, Blackbeard or Thomas Teach. I think it's Thomas Teach. I know Teach is the last name, but the first name I always forget. Um, anyways, so Blackbeard you hear a lot about whether or not he actually stepped foot in Charleston is kind of unknown to time. And back at then, it was actually called Charlestown, not Charleston. Um, so
I feel like that happens a lot.
yeah. Um, so Blackbeard actually did a very, very like very what's the word? Uh, Jack Sparrow thing to do.
Ooh.
Um, so he blockaded the whole harbor, all of Charleston Harbor, with his fleet and held the entire town hostage for a ransom of medicine. Probably because his everybody was like rampant with syphilis and everything, and his people are dying off. So like he's trying to help them, and he can't seem to get medicine. So what other way to do it than to do this? And it's actually really funny because in what's it called? Um, it's a video game, Assassin's Creed Black Flag. There's actually like you have to be Edward Teach. It's not Thomas Teach. It's Edward Teach. That's it. Anyways, um, there's a mission that you have to do where you have to actually get on a ship and you have to fight other ships and you have to like go attack little supply catches for medicine for Blackbeard because he demands you because your town in like Port Royal area in the Jamaican Caribbean places are essentially dying because of STDs.
Right.
So
Like,
that yeah. So it's actually kind of like I wouldn't say it's very similar like the idea behind history because technically he was only like 5 years. He was a pirate for 5 years before he met his end. In the game, he was a pirate for like 40 years. He was a big name in there. But anyways, he had some ships under his command and he said that he was a commodore. And so he anchored off Charlestown and he proceeded to stop and plunder every ship that tried to sail past. And he succeeded over a week in taking 9 vessels off the
wow.
sea. And he took well heeled prisoners and kept them as hostages.
So rich people.
Um, yeah. And his orders were brief. He just wanted medicine. He wanted a full list of all these medications, or all the prisoners would have their heads lopped off.
And I feel like doesn't that just go back to like kind of what we were talking about with Hocus Pocus, where like he really bad? I mean, he went about it in a bad way, but was he really doing a bad thing?
Yeah, no. And like he's
Like,
doing something that people should have access to. It's like free
right.
healthcare. Um anyways, so he basically sent that ransom to the governor of South Carolina and said that the ships are going to be torched if you don't do it, as well as the prisoners being beheaded.
Yeah.
So Blackbeard sent somebody by the name of Mr. Marks with 2 of his crews to retrieve the small trunk of medication. Um, oh, and it says here that the Blackbeard was wanting treatment for the clap, which might explain the Commodore's urgency. And it's like, yeah, like I
Yeah.
said, like syphilis, the clap, like STDs. Um, after 3 days, there was no sign of Mr. Marks or the 2 pirates that were sent with him. and Blackbeard was pissed. So he's essentially threatening to burn the entire town to the ground until like this person and these two pirate fellows like come back with what he requested. Somebody showed up to Blackbeard and was like, "Hey, don't do that. They haven't made it yet. Their ship was capsized. They're on their way." Like they had to walk here. Like they'll be here shortly.
Oh my
Um
gosh.
so basically Blackbeard's like, "All right, I'm extending the deadline. I got you." Um but to show that he meant business, he took his ship to the harbor itself. So like instead of sending his like little minions, he like went and posted right outside for all to see.
I was like, hey,
I'm here, bitches. I will fucking do this. Um,
not fucking playing with you.
yeah. So Mr. Marks finally made it back with the medicine, explaining his further delay had been caused by an inability to find his pirate crew or escorts because they spent their time in Charleston drunk, as
Of course
pirates
they
do.
did.
So, with the medicine in hand, Blackbeard had released the ships and the hostages. He although he did rob them, he took anything of value that he could take.
As one
Um,
does.
yeah, so all the clothes of several prisoners were taken and they were left to go back to Charleston in the nude.
Yes.
Um, so it's
I don't know
so
why I find that like extra exciting.
right, it's hilarious. So and a lot of people say that Blackbeard had hidden a treasure, and some believe that that treasure is supposedly hidden in Charleston. I don't think if it I think if it is, it would have been found by now. I mean,
Yeah.
unless it's like Area 51, like it's probably government hide hiding it something or I don't know, whatever. But other people believe that after he got this medicine, he's like, all right, I don't want nothing to do with Charleston. And he just like yeeted himself out of it and then took himself elsewhere. but, but
Oh
some
my
people think
gosh.
that his treasure is at the pirate house, buried deep within its walls and its floorboards and all of that kind of stuff. Anyways, it's just another rumor. There's nothing concrete about it, and there's supposedly like a passage that might be holding the treasure. Um, and honestly, there's very little evidence that Blackbeard has ever actually walked the streets of Charleston. There are a lot of documents stating pirates of known like names at the time did walk the streets of Charleston, but none really said anything that Blackbeard was among them. Um,
Right. Nothing really
so
confirms it.
yeah. So essentially, his entire pirate career lasted less than 5 years. Um, and most of it was probably spent at sea or New Providence in the Indies, which is, I think, the pirate hangout area. Um,
I freaking
but
love that because like he's one of the most famous pirates.
well known, yeah.
Right. And
And
he
it's
was
like
only a
less than
pirate for a
5.
short time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think honestly, he was like in his 40s when it all of this happened. I don't know. Something for another day. But anyways, so Blackbeard, his end happened in North Carolina. And then he was killed in North Carolina. His head was then taken to Virginia along with what remained of his crew. So there's a legend saying that his skull was fashioned into a drinking cup. It was
Gross.
brought back to Charleston, and now it's a drinking cup.
Ew.
Uh, yeah, I don't know.
I don't
Um,
know why you would do that. It's gross.
I don't know. People did some weird shit. They're just like, yeah, look at this. See that cup up there? That's my prized possession. Why does it look like a human skull? Bitch,
It
because
is.
that's Edward Teach's skull. That's Blackbeard.
Oh my
Listen, if
gosh.
I have Blackbeard as a cup in my house, my entire house would be absolutely crawling with some dark ass energy. Like Edward
Oh my
Teach would be
god.
in my dreams, like threatening to lob off my head or burn down Charleston until I gave his head like a proper burial, and I'd be like, sir, whatever you need. I got you.
Right,
Like, you want to be put
done.
to rest? I will do it. Anything else, sir? Like, you want me to give you some gold? Like, I got you. I will put a gold something or another on top of your grave. I don't care.
Oh my god.
Anyways, um, so it's really, really cool though, because you can walk the streets and you can be like, man, pirates were here once. And it's like, it's kind of like that. The world is a huge place with like a lot of history in it. And it just kind of like,
Yeah.
it kind of grounds you in a way. Um, so yeah, it's a great location to visit if you ever go to Charleston, Pirate House down on Church Street. There are a few ghost tour walks, so you can learn a little bit more about the history of Charleston. You can even go to the dungeon where a lot of pirates were actually held.
Nope.
And the pirate house is one you don't necessarily go inside, but you like go outside, like you're outside the house. And actually, once upon a time, you used to be able to actually rent out like one of the bedrooms in the pirate house
Nope.
on like Airbnb, and you could like stay there. It's
That's
like
gonna be
the
a hard
Pirate
pass.
Inn or something. Yeah, it was like a
No.
Pirate Inn or something like that. Um, so yeah, it's like a bed and breakfast kind of thing. So yeah, it's really cool. But yeah, that is Edward
That's,
Teach, also known as
oh
Blackbeard, in
my.
piracy in South Carolina.
That's really cool though.
I know, good times, man. I fucking love pirates.
I
Love
do
them
too.
so much.
But also, I'm not fucking staying in the pirate house. Can you imagine all the juju in that place? Like,
Honestly, so there's another house nearby, and it's also on the ghost tour that you could take on many of the ghost tours. It's called the Provost or the Magazine Building or something like that. I think that's where they held like ammo for various whatever the case may be or that was needed. But like the front yard of this place was where a lot of people were essentially like I don't want to say murdered, but like sentenced to death. I mean murdered, but like
right,
not in cold blood like some people would do. It literally was like a trial and they lost and they're like, all right, bye. Um
right, like executed.
Yeah, execution, that's the word I was looking for. Um, and the house attached to it, uh, is technically a home. It's I think I looked it up on Zillow because you could buy them for some I don't know how it is or what it is, but if you go on, like, Zillow.com or one of the, like, selling houses kind of websites or, like, houses for rent kind of thing, um the magazine building or whatever is on sale and it's like almost $1 million and the house attached to it is like 2.8 million. But you can have it all for yours in one great price. Uh,
Wow.
but basically, so that house that's attached to it, the people that were executed in that front yard now essentially supposedly reside in the house that's attached to it, attached to like the property. Um, so it's a private resident. You can't really go in, you can't go near it really. You can really just stay on like the public area. Um, but supposedly go like pirate ghost type sightings have been mentioned by
Nope.
the people who live there.
Nope. That's just like,
So,
do you follow Zillow Gone Wild on Facebook?
no.
There's this website called Zillow Gone Wild, and I just follow them on Facebook, but there's like a whole website devoted to it. And a couple weeks ago, one of the like homes that was for sale was literally like a World War II middle of the ocean bunker. Like you can only get to it by boat, and the top of it, it looks like like corn silos. Like
Oh
it
yeah.
looks like the concrete part of the silo just flat across the top, except there's like a trap door, and you go down into it, and it's like they've turned it into a house down in there. Nope, nope. First of
It's
fucking
been like
all, like
it's like
how
buried
like
alive.
right, like what if the tide comes in and like you're what? I mean, it's like above the water, but like
Still, like
and like what if I
did
mean
anyone listen to the one episode of ACOWAR? Like when they went to the summer court and they went underground and all of a sudden the
uh-huh.
water came rushing in? And no, no,
Yeah,
no. That it's
nope.
like that shit right there. No, thank you.
Nope. 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 Huh.
See, I don't have a fear of the water. I don't have the fear of the ocean. I have a fear of drowning. So like give me that fear. Whatever that fear is, I got you. Like that's me.
Oof. I don't like
But like,
underground. I do not like to be enclosed.
yeah, no.
Just no, thank you. No, it's not for me. So, no.
Anyways, all right.
All right.
Whew, until next time.
Special guest next.
Bye.
Or no, wait.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have a special guest for the next episode.
Woo woo.
All right.
All
See you
right.
later.
Bye.
Bye.